In our last movie, we started the process of managing DDR crosstalk by using bilayer wire-to-wire spacing rules. To do this, we first created classes for each collection of constraints that we want to apply for DDR. And we also created class-to-class relational objects. The key pieces that we did were clocks, strobes, the byte lanes without their strobes, and the address control without their clocks. The reason we said no clocks and no strobes is that the clocks and strobes will have their own individual crosstalk rules versus the bits from a byte lane to other signals and the bits within a byte lane, and address and control to other signals and address control bits within themselves within their own address control bus. The next step is to create spacing bilayer constraint CSets. And then we'll apply those CSets to each of these classes and these class-to-class. So let's do that next. Using the same define spacing screen, I'm going to go to the button at the bottom, Define New Spacing CSet, and I'm going to call this ByteLane InterBus. This will be wire-to-wire spacing clearance from any byte lane without its strobe to all other signals. And I'm going to get my initial values from the default CSet because that will already have other spacing values by layer, because all I want to change for this example is the wire-to-wire or the line-to-line spacing on all the different layers. So we can see that we've created this new CSet. It's inherited its values from the default CSet. That's what I wanted to do. And now let's edit it and change the line-to-line spacing values. So first I'll select all the internal layers. I'm going to set those to 15 mils. Apply to selected cells. I'll select the outer layers. I'll make that 20. Apply to selected cells and save. And now we have two CSets in our display. The default that we got from the BRD file and the new ByteLane InterBus. Now I want to create one for address control InterBus, the address control bits to other signals. And that's going to have the same exact values as the ByteLane InterBus, so I'll just copy from that one. The next thing I want to do is I want to define a new CSet, and this time I want to do ByteLane IntraBus. I want to have a reduced clearance, line to line, for the bits in the byte lane, not counting now the strobes within each byte lane bus. So I'm going to select my initial values again from default. Here's my ByteLane IntraBus. I'll edit that. And this time for the internal layers, instead of 15 mils line to line, I'm going to put in 8. Apply to selected cells. And instead of 20 on the outer layers, I'll put in 12. I want to create an IntraBus constraint set for the address control. So I'll create another CSet. And I'll call this address control IntraBus. And I'm going to use the exact same values that I used for the ByteLane IntraBus. So that CSet's done. Now I'm going to create one more CSet, and I'll call this clock strobe because I'm going to use the same values. And I'll get that from the default. Here's my clock strobe. I'll right mouse click. All layers, I'm going to put a minimum of a hard 20 mils clearance. And I'm going to apply this to the clocks and the strobes when we assign this CSet. All of our CSets have been created. And the next step is to assign them to our classes and to our class-to-class relational objects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the CSet I want to use, and that will show up in this field, selected CSet. This is the clock strobe. And I want to apply that, I'm holding the control key, to my DDR clock and DDR strobes class. So I'll select these two. This one is selected and I can see it to reconfirm right here in this field. Apply CSet reference to selected items. And I'm all done. I've assigned this CSet to these classes. Now I'll select my ByteLanes without strobes. And to the class itself, I want to apply the InterBus CSet to create spacing from these ByteLanes to all other signals. I can see it confirmed in the selected CSet field. Add CSet reference to selected items. And lastly, the address control without a clock. I'm going to select the address control InterBus and apply that. And now I'll go to class relational objects, and I'll select all the ByteLane to themselves. Each of these class to class is the ByteLane bits to itself. So the same class is in class 1 and class 2. It's each ByteLane. I'm going to select ByteLane IntraBus. And the address control bits to itself, I'll select address control IntraBus. And I'm done. I've created all the classes and all the class to class. We've created all the different CSets that we need to describe what the line-to-line spacing by layer is for each of these, and we've assigned the CSets to the class to class and the CSets to the classes. And now I'll just say exit, and that will save. And now we're returned to our class screen, and here is where we can assign the classes to the different net that are in each of these selections for this particular schematic.